What's up, guys? Coming at you from Shenzhen for another quick video where I just turn on the camera and have a chat with you. I do have a specific topic in mind, and I'm going to try to get through this as quick as possible. It's really hot here in Shenzhen, and my air conditioning broke in this room, so I need to finish this before I start melting. It's also been a very long day. I filmed News on China in the morning, which I'll probably release tomorrow, and I was out for the rest of the day. But I wanted to get this video in because I'll be on the road for the next couple days, and I won't really be able to make too many videos. So let's just jump right into this. This is about an article that I was featured in on South China Morning Post. I was on the front page, and the title of this article was "The China-Based Foreigners Defending Beijing from Xinjiang Genocide Claims." Very, very unbalanced article. I think it does a pretty good job at pretending to be balanced, but the way that they word it, the way that they represent it, and the things that they miss out are very telling about where they're trying to guide the audience. So I'll start with... Actually, when the journalist contacted me beforehand, I knew a hit piece or something close to a hit piece was coming. So the journalist who reached out to me was Holly Chik, and she says, "Dear Mr. Dumbrill, this is Holly Chik with the South China Morning Post. We've noticed that the Chinese Foreign Ministry played your remarks in a press conference last week, and the video has also been shared on Weibo by Chinese media, including CGTN. I'm wondering if you'd be able to share your thoughts on the following. 1. How do you feel after learning that your remarks have reached the Chinese Foreign Ministry and social media platform? 2. What do you think about the fact that Beijing has long censored information about Xinjiang before Western countries began speaking out about it? And 3, finally, what do you think has caused the controversy about Xinjiang? Could it be related to the lack of information about the Far West region? It would be great to hear back from you before noon. Please let me know if talking over the phone is more convenient for you. Thank you very much, Holly." So when she said that there was a deadline of noon, and she sent this to me, I can't remember when it was a few hours before that. Very short time period. It made me think of a hit piece that I think it was called, I think it was the Times in the UK. They did a piece on China YouTubers. I wasn't included in that, but apparently they had sent an email out to some of them just a very short period of time before the article was published and said, "Hey, do you want to comment?" And then they went ahead and published it very shortly after that, not really giving enough time for response and saying, "We reached out for comment and we received no reply." Technically, it's correct. It's misleading, but it's correct. They just wanted to be able to write that in. So I thought, no, I'm going to get my answers done really quickly. So I formulated my answers, but then I thought, wait, hold on a second. I'm going to ask a couple more questions. So what I did before I sent the answers back is I asked, "Hi, Holly, will my responses be published in full without being cut?" "No, we have we will reserve the right to edit it." They have the right to edit my answers. And so I said, "Okay, all right, I'd rather not respond if you reserve the right to edit. A nuanced and complicated topic like this is extremely easy to take someone out of context on." "No problem. Thank you for letting me know." So it's pretty clear by this, she really didn't care if she got my answers or not. They already had their article written, and they asked me very superficial questions, considering the content that was in my original video that they're talking about. They're talking about the 12-minute video that went viral. So I knew that there was a hit piece or something close to a hit piece coming. I even posted it out on my Twitter. I said, "Hey, get ready, guys. There's going to be a hit piece on me." And I made a bet. I said, $100 says they even misrepresent the one answer I did give them, that I wouldn't respond because they'll take me out of context. And I bet they'll say something along the lines of, "We reached out to Daniel Dumbrill for a comment and he refused to participate," or something like that. I ended up losing that bet. They didn't say that piece. It was a misleading article, but they didn't say that piece. And although it was just a joke saying I bet $100, I decided to donate $100 to the Stop Asian Hate Fund, which donates to a number of really cool sub-funds and also to family members that were victims, including the victims, the people who lost their family in that shooting. So anyways, that's really not the topic here. So let's get into the article itself. So the article, when it launched, again, the title was "The China-Based Foreigners Defending Beijing from Xinjiang Genocide Claims." So let's get into... Actually, you know what, guys? No. What I'm going to do before this, I might as well read you what my responses were. Now, these responses, I fully expected I'd probably have to cut them down shorter to fit in their article, even though this is a really, really long article. I'm not going to read it all to you. I'll read you the kind of highlights. But there's no reason they wouldn't have been able to include a long response. But I was willing and ready to cut them down. But what I'm going to give you now is the non-cut down version of the question, just raw and what came to mind when I was initially asked those questions. So for the first question that I was asked: how do you feel about learning that your remarks have reached the Chinese Foreign Ministry and social media platform? So my answer to that was, I find it surreal and kind of funny. My positive-leaning perspectives on China have often led people to tell me I'm repeating CCP talking points, even when I'm presenting perspectives not ever used by anyone else. I suppose now they'll have to accuse the CCP of using Dumbrill talking points. So just a very simple answer. I thought it was kind of funny because this has happened a couple of times. My perspective on things were then picked up by other people, but for some reason I'm always accused as using other talking points that have never ever showed up anywhere else. But anyways, the second question I was asked, so what do you think of the fact that Beijing has long censored information about Xinjiang before Western media countries began speaking out about it? So I said, I think there are plenty of things Beijing should be more transparent on. But when people ask this question in relation to Xinjiang, people usually associate it with the idea that China denied the existence of the vocational training centers. This idea was popularized by Western media when they reported in October 2018 that China rebranded the concentration camps to vocational training centers, when in fact the centers were regularly referred to as vocational training centers before that date. And the programs in those centers had also been appearing online as transformation through education. Furthermore, the World Bank granted a $100 million loan to China to expand its vocational training programs and facilities. Outside of this specific example, I'm aware that people also use the term deny to refer to things they believe are happening or to statistics that were written by written in debunked Adrian Zent's reports. In that regard, I suppose you could say there will be a continual denial as far as those critics are concerned. Because, I mean, they're saying, why are you denying this? It's like, because it actually is false. And then obviously the other thing is the vocational training centers, which they never denied to having. It's just being misrepresented about who's going in there, how it works, and how many people are going in, of course. So the final question was, what do you think could have caused the controversy about Xinjiang? Could it be related to the lack of information from the far west region? So I said, there are plenty of things we lack information on in this world, but something interesting always seems to happen when U.S. state-funded NGOs aligned with America's geopolitical interests and who share a common enemy start receiving millions of dollars in funding. It suddenly becomes a controversy that people care about. If Western governments started funding Afghan groups whose family have been affected by American war crimes to the same level that these Uyghur East Turkestan separatist groups are, and Western media started caring about the Muslims there as much as they do the Muslims in China, people would also care more about the controversy surrounding America sanctioning International Criminal Court members who wanted to investigate those crimes. That's not meant to be a whataboutism, but instead meant to simply illustrate the unfortunate truth about how superficial the mechanisms behind our compassion and attention are weaponized. After all, the two examples aren't really comparable. If we did start investigating those war crimes in Afghanistan, we wouldn't be dealing with blurry satellite photos which turn out to be shopping malls and witness testimonies that fall apart under even minimal scrutiny. We'd have actual hard evidence and people who have been permanently mutilated or who now visit children in their graves because they took an American bullet through their heads. So obviously I get a little bit more feisty with that answer because the questions are loaded and these are the kinds of hard truths and hard pills that people need to swallow at this point to really understand, like, come on, seriously, when this is who's funding this story, you really got to step back. And why is it that there's this disconnect with how much people care about a group of people on a basis of shoddy evidence when we've got hard evidence of other things that Western countries have actually done? Again, it's not a whataboutism. It's to put into perspective, again, how the attention is divided up and what people really care about. It's not a universal even care. And then there's obviously some deeper questions you need to ask yourself after you start to realize, why is it we care more about this? Particularly in the absence of any substantial evidence. So now let's get into the article itself. All right, so foreigners who depict China in a positive light are becoming increasingly important to Beijing's counter-narrative to allegations of an ongoing genocide in the far west region of Xinjiang. That's an odd one just because, I mean, you would never hear the opposite, saying that foreigners or Chinese people or dissidents are becoming increasingly important to America's narrative on China. I mean, this is you immediately, you know, one of the opening lines are like this. You can tell that it's like, what? Hold on a second. Why do you have to word it like this? You'd never word it in the opposite direction for that. I'm not going to harp on this one too much, though. I'm going to continue on. So the next one I have is in his speech, Dumbrill said that he had contacted nearly 80 members of Canada's Parliament who last month voted in favor of a motion that described China's treatment of Uyghur Muslim minority in Xinjiang as a genocide. No MP had agreed to join a discussion or interview, he said. I like that he said at the end. This would be a very easy thing to verify. It could have been one of the questions that she asked me. She could have asked me, which MPs did you contact? And she could have gone off and actually verified it. Or she could have actually looked at my original video that has the name of every single MP that I contacted. And she could, you know, contact one of them and say, is it true Daniel contacted you? If this was something that they really, really wanted to verify, they would, and they had doubts on it, they definitely would have spot checked it. I suspect they really do believe that I did this, and they don't want to solidify this as a he said item, because it would have been very easy to verify. So yeah, let's move on to the next thing I've got here. Dumbrill also warned against brainlessly swallowing and regurgitating propaganda for a Western audience, which he said encouraged a more hardline, aggressive approach towards China. Well, it's interesting that she just would put this comment without actually including one of the pieces of brainless propaganda that I included in the presentation. And it's really interesting. It is a piece of brainless propaganda that was propped up by BBC and the CNN that SCMP could have had the opportunity to be the first mainstream media outlet to break this story outside of a vlogger, a bar owner. She emphasized that in the article too. Daniel's a bar owner in China because she knew that this was going to be used to marginalize my opinion. And it has already. You can see throughout Twitter. It's really funny. You've got professors saying, why would I listen to a bar owner? And it's kind of interesting because these are the same kinds of people that used to defend AOC when people were marginalizing her opinion on the fact that she was a bartender before. But all of a sudden they're saying, oh yeah, he owns a bar. Why am I going to listen to this guy? So she put that in there, but she didn't put my example, which had a glaring hole in it, which was a perfect epitome, a perfect example of the brainless propaganda I was speaking about in this sentence that they pulled out. And so that, of course, is of Tursinay. She was on CNN. Where her past, she talked about her story about being abused, sexually abused, all this stuff. She's on the third version of her story, wildly deviating from the first, just like I said in my 12-minute presentation. And her passport renewal date was blurred out by CNN. You can see it there in the screenshot. And that is because it is a giant hole in her story. The original passport is on Xinjiang Victims Database along with one of her testimonies there. Her passport was renewed on March 2019. In March 2019, and in one of her original testimonies, she said she was under house arrest from January to June, and so there would have been no way to get her passport. There's a bunch of things you should think about there. Like, first of all, so of course she couldn't get her passport. According to Chinese law, you need to go in and get it yourself, and she can't do that if she's under house arrest. And you know, with the piece being repeated that it's very hard for Uyghurs to get passports, why would they grant a passport to this person if she was being systematically abused, tortured, raped, and all this stuff, and under house arrest? And they'll say, here's your passport. Really? You think that will work? And if it's that easy for somebody who's being detained and tortured to get a passport, it's that easy for all Uyghurs to get a passport then. And then your next question is, why aren't the border regions, why aren't the bordering countries overflowing with refugees from Xinjiang, Uyghur refugees from Xinjiang, of a genocide of the scale that we're talking about in the West is going on? There's so many different things you can ask yourself here, but the very specific piece of brainless propaganda I was talking about in this presentation is very relevant. Her story continually changed, and her passport date is a giant hole in her story. Why would SCMP not include that, but just include a general claim that I say that you shouldn't swallow brainless propaganda, without mentioning the actual example of brainless propaganda that I brought to the panel? So obviously that is too much of a home run. And they do not want to include that. They want this to go in a specific direction. This is not, just like the CNN journalism, this SCMP article is not honest journalism. It's far from it. All right, so what do I got next? Dumbrill's presentation was part of a panel discussion which also featured the Chinese Consul General in Calgary, Liu Xu, Radhik Desai, Professor of Political Studies at the University of Manitoba, Toronto-based activist Omar Latif, who visited Xinjiang in 2019, and Max Blumenthal, founder and editor of US-based news website The Gray Zone. Blumenthal's website has been accused of whitewashing the crimes of authoritarian countries from Nicolas Maduro's Venezuela to Assad's Syria, while failing to highlight flaws in the regime that staunchly are opposed to U.S. foreign policy. Like, okay, right? That's pretty general. Who said it? Do you want to expand a little bit, or you just want to say somebody once said that? I mean, I can say Holly Chik is a mainstream media hack who loves to repeat U.S. propaganda talking points. There you go, folks. From now on, anybody who ever refers to Holly Chik in an article or anywhere else, they can say, Holly Chik has been accused of being a mainstream media hack who loves to repeat U.S. propaganda talking points. Like, fair game, right? They can just do that from now on. I mean, it's as ridiculous as this in terms of just randomly putting something in that somebody claimed. But whatever, you know what? Let's actually, no, let's not go on because that's very valuable. This is the extent of what she spoke about with Max Blumenthal. Also, leaving out key pieces of his speech that talk about massive holes in this narrative, including major errors from Adrian Zentz's report that has been repeated by mainstream media all over the world. Funny enough, Adrian Zentz, after that panel, he went back and he changed his reports to quietly correct the numbers without making any notification about it. And he corrected the errors so it doesn't look as bad as it used to. So he's not going to go out to those media outlets and say, oh, I need to correct this. He wanted to quietly do it. But he modified the date on the report to say that it was modified before our panel. But when you look at the metadata, actually, he modified it after that. He wanted it to look like, if somebody looked at our panel, he wanted it to look like that was already fixed before our panel, so Max Blumenthal was wrong. Very, very sneaky stuff. Adrian Zentz is the guy, as Max Blumenthal said in his part of the presentation, his name is almost on every single Uyghur genocide report there is, all over the place. Very troubling guy, caught in multiple lies, very problematic character. But no, none of that in this article, just a random little smear against Max Blumenthal in the Gray Zone. So what do we have next? All right, yeah, so Dumbrill's YouTube channel has 140,000 subscribers, while his videos, commentaries, and interviews on topics such as the Hong Kong protesters have previously appeared on CGTN. His long track record of providing fodder for the Chinese state media to throw at the West has earned him special privileges not accorded to veteran foreign correspondents in the country. Last year, he partnered with CGTN to travel the length of Tibet Autonomous Region, interviewing residents and visiting schools to highlight the successes of the Communist Party's poverty alleviation campaign. In contrast, foreign journalists who gain permission to enter Tibet are accompanied by government minders and forced to strictly adhere to an imposed itinerary with little time for independent reporting. I don't know how true that is about other people's reporting, but any foreigner who goes to Tibet, it's very strict. But despite that, I mean, I did manage on both trips, because I've been to Tibet before on my own without this crew, before I was even a vlogger. And I had a lot of things I could talk about during that time. The second time, even on that trip that I went with CGTN, I managed to talk to people who don't like the Chinese government, who worship the Dalai Lama, and I had interesting things to say about it, which I reported in my channel. Again, I mean, saying that would, in this article, would, of course, throw the balance off in terms of what it's trying to accomplish here. Let me see, what else do I got here? I think that might be it. I think that might be all I want to highlight. But I got some really interesting advice from somebody. I'll try to, I didn't prepare it for this video, but they're saying, yeah, you know what, these journalists, that was a red flag when they contacted you and said this. You knew it was coming. You called it right. And I expect more articles like this to come out in the West without actually engaging with the main points of that panel that we put together. So it'll be interesting to see. It's definitely going to be a great display of the sad state of journalism that we have. I will say that the article throughout the middle, it was sprinkled with references from people who actually agree with my position. So it was I don't know. I don't know exactly how to take it. It's either one of two things, really. It's either an article that they really tried to subliminally drive the audience in a particular direction with the innuendos and the words they used, the way they framed it, and what they left out. They wanted it. They wanted their audience to go in a specific direction, but they also wanted to do it in a more subtle way where it looked like they were trying to be balanced. So they did have testimony from other people who actually agreed with my position. Or they genuinely are a biased person. If I look at their other tweets and things like that, I think they are biased towards the anti-China side. And they really tried to make a hard effort in this article to be balanced. That's entirely possible. That's entirely possible that they really made an effort to be balanced here, but this is the best that they could produce, considering their underlying deep-seated biases that they're working with. Either way, I mean, I found it pretty interesting. It definitely brought a lot more attention to my channel, and I'm looking forward to more pieces coming out, and I'll tear them apart here on the YouTube channel as they come through. But anyways, I think I'm going to leave it there. I got to wake up early tomorrow. I still have to pack, and as I said, I'm starting to melt now with the air conditioning off. So I hope you enjoyed that. I could have gone into a lot more depth and really analyzed this a bit more, but not too much time. I hope you are still satisfied with this short video. What are we at? 20 minutes. Still not that short. But anyways, I hope you guys are all doing well, and I will catch you when I'm back. Peace.